It is recording. We are live. Working.
Monitoring, recording a call, and I'm seeing some kilobytes. Let's rock and roll.
Nice. Only 2 tries this time. Welcome to the Side Action Podcast, episode 4 of season 3. My name is Jim Weglars, aka Wegs. You can follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And this is Steve Roberts, aka Action. You can follow me on Twitter at 31sroberts.
Follow the podcast at Side Action Pod on Twitter. So, Action, what happened last weekend? Any excitement? I'm sure you won some money. You've been good at that so far.
Yeah, well, a little date night on Friday night. There was no football going on, so we went out and checked out this new place here in Ferndale with some live music. Tom Petty cover band was playing last Friday.
Sweet.
So that was enjoyable. And then had the tennis match with
Right.
Jan and Ryan. So I wouldn't call it a match, but we usually just trade partners every set or so and then just play for fun. So that was enjoyable. And
So there
then
wasn't any money on the line.
no gambling on the tennis. You know, I would be down, but some of the other partners in the group, not so much. How about you?
Well, as you know, well, first of all, Friday night was fun. I did get to, play a little volleyball, and then I went to View, which is a really cool rooftop bar in the South Loop. It was a beautiful night. The weekend was great overall. Weather in Chicago was outstanding, and so that was just nice. One of my friends was back in town, and we just kind of got some drinks. It was a nice spot. We ended up playing flag football on Saturday. They moved us to the afternoon league. When they say that, there's only 4 teams in the league. So they combined the 2 different leagues into one league of 4 teams. And the Shockers were they were a favorite. It was a young group of people. As you know, sometimes the youngsters are fast out there, Action, but some savvy veterans were out there. Your cousin, myself, Rainmaker, Jimmy Zaronis, he's always out there. But we got a new guy. His name's Remy that Janelle brought in. This dude is lightning fast. He got to play safety. I got to play corner for the first time in a while, and I'm a couple of picks. Should have had a pick 6 in the first play of the game. Let it go through my hands, but we ended up killing them 42-14. Rainmaker and I we were up 2 scores going in the second half. I made an early line of Shockers +8 because I thought they would come back. But in talking with him, we made it, Shockers -6 going in, and we ended up covering easily in the second half. So we dominated again in the second half. It was a good time. Did go to Rinaldi's, and of course, I don't know what they would be. I guess your second cousins, the little ones, Mikey's kids. They got them on some ice cream, and it was over. That they were rocking that place out, running all over the place, and but anyway, it was a good time. And then in terms of betting, I didn't do so great, but that's kind of how it's been lately. I got the Green Bay money line, but other than that, it was a tough day. We did pretty well in the contest. That's all that I really care about long term. So
that's true. Yeah. Well, our bankrolls are important too, collectively, but the contest is rolling on, and hopefully we can do a little deeper dive this week and pick out some winners for our personal bankrolls as well as the contest.
Yeah, exactly. Let's make some money here. So the episode's really going to be heavy NFL again. That's all we're talking about in the podcast these days. So, for all those NBA fans, yes, the finals are going on, but as you saw last night, the Lakers dominated.
I think it's over, Wegs. The Heat are in trouble.
I actually took the Heat in the money line last night, just for S&Gs, and when I watched the first quarter, I'm like, all right, they're up 26-13. This is looking good. The rest of that game, they just got destroyed. It was ugly. They could not keep them off the glass. They were like, -23, -25 on the glass. So
yeah,
not looking good. Not looking good.
And now I hear that Bam is hurt and Dragic might have an injury that keeps him out for the rest of the series. So without those guys, I don't see how they're going to win a game.
Yeah, plantar fascia tear. That's not good. He's not coming back. And Bam, what can you say? So that's the NBA element to the podcast. So
look at that. We squeezed it in.
We got it in. There you go, Melissa. That was for you. Well, anyway, not a legislative update, but kind of a COVID update. The NFL got struck by its first situation that was COVID. We had, I guess, the Tennessee coach then eventually infected some players or something.
Yeah.
Up to 10 Tennessee Titans who traveled to Minnesota tested positive after the game. There's a little bit of a loophole, as we talked about on a previous podcast, that they don't test the day of the game. So these guys tested positive and now are in this protocol period where they're basically postponing their game against the Steelers. They were off the board early. We thought the Vikings and Texans might also be hit because the Vikings obviously encountered the Titans, but they're on the board right now and they're playing, aren't they, actually?
Yeah, the latest I heard from Paul Charchian, who was on Follow the Money today, mentioned that the Vikings have all negative tests. So at this point, it doesn't appear that they picked up any cases, which is remarkable. I heard that the Tennessee linebackers coach was actually infected or tested positive on Saturday of last week, and they still decided to play the game, which is just wild to me.
Yeah, that seems like a mistake, but
Yeah.
the players I thought were supposed to be tested the day before, so maybe they tested negative at that time, but who knows? I mean, it's obviously who knows when those antibodies kick in and your body picks it up. I'm not really sure. I'm not a health professional. I'm just a lowly bad gambler. Well, let's talk about last week. It was a huge week again. Just kind of go over the general numbers. We had only 6 home teams won last week. That was kind of a big news. 10 road winners. But basically the money was split down the middle, favorites and dogs through the week, 8-8. That's kind of unique. And then the overs continued to cash at a positive clip. They had 9 overs to 6 unders, and I rated 1 push in that. So, but still, if you look at the course of the first 3 weeks, it's been an over parade, hasn't it been?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. And these numbers just keep getting higher and higher. You've seen some totals come out this week that are at levels that we've never seen before. And just makes you wonder if there's ever going to be some pullback here. You got to expect that it's coming. The hard part for us is to try and identify when that might be to come in on those unders. I personally don't think I could see myself playing any NFL unders right now.
I know I lost the under with the Patriots. The one that I was going to maybe play that did hit, but I didn't end up playing it was the one that went to overtime. And Philly and Cincinnati somehow it didn't hit the over. That was unique. You showed on the season that we're home and road split exactly down the middle, 24 and 24, and as well as the favorites and dogs, 24 and 24. So it's really just the totals that are in play here. You seem to have maybe a reason why this could be, that there's more scoring in these games. You've kind of identified some statistics that could point to the reason.
Yeah, now 29 and 18 through 3 weeks to the over, and the teams are averaging higher point totals, 25.4 points per game, which is 2 point higher than the next highest scoring season in 2013. And I saw earlier this week, Rob Pizzola in the gambling Twitter sphere posted this little chart that indicates that it's the referees that are really causing this increased scoring just based on their calling penalties. You can see here on this chart that all the listeners can see, obviously, that the penalties are down a little bit, 11.8 per game. The last couple of years, it's been in the 13.5 range. But it's really the number of penalties that benefit the offense that are really drastically different. False starts are way down. You've got offensive holding that's way down, 1.3 per contest, where last year's average was 2.3. And offensive pass interference is down. You've got defensive holding is down, interestingly enough, but the defensive pass interference is up this year, 1.44 per contest. So all these things just add up to more scoring. And I would be interested to see how the NFL views this. If they see this data coming through, surely they're watching it week over week. But I'm not sure if it's going to impact the games. It's something we have to discuss.
Well, it's one thing that could be factoring in, at least with the false starts and maybe even the holds, is the crowd noise. And they talked about it on Sunday night quite a bit, with New Orleans. And because Green Bay was able to do their normal, hard counts, it was almost like a home game for Aaron Rodgers, right? He had the Saints on their heels. They didn't know when to go across the line or not. And unlike a normal Saints game or Seattle game for Dallas or something last weekend, they don't need to use silent counts, and there's not as many false starts that way. And I do think holding is related to that, because if the offense is on the defensive, so to speak, when they don't know when they're going to snap the ball and it's going to be a little bit off, they may not be in the proper position to block, and then you get more holding penalties on pass rushers. That's the way I'm attributing it. Maybe you're right. Maybe they'll switch the officiating. Typically speaking, the last 2 seasons, the early games of the year have actually been higher penalties, not lower. So it's really an interesting flip from at least last year's data. But either way, I mean, we're getting all these crazy totals, still lots of points scored in the fourth quarter, huge comebacks, as we'll talk about in a minute. But I mean, I don't mind it. It's a little bit more like arena football or college football, as they said. That's what they kept saying on the broadcast on Sunday night, is that it's a more open format, and it's just slinging around the yard, which really benefits some of these quarterbacks and their statistics.
Yeah, I think there's some merit to the crowd noise factor, without a doubt. That's got to be a huge, somewhat of a factor here. I also would like to touch on the point you mentioned, is the higher scoring second halves. I think we talked about it a little bit last week. Some of these defenders are getting fatigued, and that's creating some more opportunities for the offenses to blow it out in the second half. So if you're looking for an angle, maybe live wagers in game, or even halftime totals going over.
Right. I mean, you got to obviously look at the early, I guess the pre-flop total first, right? And see if it isn't on pace, then maybe hit it in the second half, because it'll go over the, second half total if you're seeing it's trending down. There are some teams that seem to be playing a little bit lower scoring, like the Chargers or somebody like that. But in general, it's hard to pick, like you said, even a team like the Patriots, which we trusted last year as an under team. They can't do it either. And part of it is defensive scores too. You got to factor that in. Well, let's talk about some of these games. I mean, there were some incredible games. Sunday was it was a wild Sunday. It was fun to watch, but certainly for us in our contest picks, our hearts were jumping out of our, chests there. The first one has to be the Bills-Rams game. Incredible football game. I mean, my guy, Josh Allen for president, he's obviously, we didn't look at the MVP futures, but he's definitely my darling, even though he's probably not going to win. But he's been playing incredibly, and what I put was that they were up 28-3 in this game. They were dominating in the third quarter. The Rams, I don't know if they were just off or what, but maybe the game plan switched. They changed to and I got to admit, Jared Goff looked pretty good in the second half. They rolled all the way back, scored 29 straight points, took the lead. Our pick was in jeopardy. We took the Bills -2.5 in this game. And thankfully, Josh Allen was able to complete a game-winning drive in the final, seconds, really, with a couple penalties. I mean, the one penalty was a little questionable, especially down in the red zone there. But he came through in the clutch, made a huge play to Cole Beasley on 3rd and long on their half of the field, and then obviously made the game-winning touchdown pass to the tight end in the end zone. This Bills team is legit.
Yeah, definitely a great win for side action in the contest. But I kind of feel like that maybe we were on the wrong side there, to be honest. Even after the early lead that Buffalo jumped out to, the Rams really turned it on in the second half. And the one big takeaway that I'm gleaning from this game is that Buffalo defense is not quite as good as they're rated. I think you saw the Rams just they outgained Buffalo by 103 yards and 0.7 yards per play and 1.5 yards per pass. So I think that early in this season, you also saw Miami put up some good numbers against this Buffalo D. So that's one thing I think that we should take away from this game outside of Josh Allen's masterful performance.
Right, for sure. Just to touch on it, we'll talk a lot more maybe starting next week on the metrics that we look at. We do look at yards per play quite a bit. You've already heard Action mention DVOA a lot. Maybe you want to go over that really quickly, because I don't think we actually mentioned it early in the season. What does DVOA stand for, and where are you getting that information?
DVOA is opponent adjusted efficiency, essentially. I don't remember exactly what DV is, but it takes each football team's efficiency on offense and defense, and then look at it how they are on each individual play. So it doesn't matter the score or the game time situation. It just looks at their efficiency on a play-by-play basis. And through the first 4 weeks, they have this algorithm where they use some of the priors or preseason expectations for each one of these teams. And then after week 4, they start actually weighting the opponent adjustments. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a level playing field in terms of a rating system.
Right. And then yards per play simply, obviously, is just, a team is more efficient, right? They're getting more yardage. That usually means they're a better offense if it's higher yards per play. We start analyzing that probably next week. I know I'm going to do my Wegs index starting after 4 weeks to try to look at some data to figure out what, try to help us with these picks. But I know you'd mentioned on previous podcasts. I just wanted to cover that. Another game that we were actually on the right side to give action. He was going homer, but it was the right call. The Lions, they came through. They were basically a 5.5-point dog on the road at the Cardinals. They came through with the outright win, 26-23. So, I mean, your idea of Kyler Murray and that gang, just maybe they're being a little too fat and happy, or maybe the Lions just didn't want to go 0-3.
Well, I think that the Lions defense has to get some credit in this one. You've seen a few of their secondary injuries heal up, and they're back in the field now. And Kyler Murray threw 3 interceptions in this game that were really the difference. And I think that this Detroit Lions team is a little bit spry, and I could see them making the play a little bit over the next few weeks, especially with that defense getting healthier.
Okay, you heard it here. I'm always going to be reluctant with a Matt Patricia coach team, but we'll see. They did play really well. They impressed us. They got us our win, which was the most important thing. The other game that, of course, I was all over, last week, but action talked me off the ledge, and then I guess they'll stay on the ledge, was the Packers going to New Orleans. The Packers, to me, in this game dominated. I know that the score was 37-30, but I didn't really have a doubt they were going to win. In my mind, Rodgers looked great. He was throwing the ball over. Devontae Adams was out anyway. It didn't matter. You had Allen Lazard. You had anybody else catching the ball. And more importantly, that I've noted, Drew Brees, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he got some scores, obviously, but he was helped out tremendously by Alvin Kamara, who had an incredible play. That one screen pass or swing pass was insane. But I just don't think he's the same. And the Packers look legit. I mean, I know you could probably look at a letdown spot this week or maybe another week, but they definitely took control of the NFC with that win.
Yeah, it was definitely a statement win for Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. I was definitely wrong in this game, I'll admit. I had New Orleans in a few different spots, as well as looked under the total in this game. It was one of my bad calls of the week. I found I bet online the Packers to score less than 40 points. I laid minus 500, and that was a sweat because I thought the Packers might get there at one point. But that was my only green check mark on Sunday night.
Right. Well, let me skip this one and go to the other one since they were earlier games. Tennessee and Minnesota was one of our other picks. We had Tennessee 2.5 point favorites on the road. And this game looked like we had no chance of winning because Minnesota, kind of like to my non-statistical handicap, was I didn't feel like Minnesota was going to go 3. I did end up going the contest because I like Tennessee, but Minnesota was really dominant in this game. They had huge play after huge play. It really makes me question that Tennessee defense. And in the end, Tennessee did come back to win 31-30, but as we've noted, they just kicked a bunch of field goals. They couldn't score when they got in the red zone, which ended up costing them the game, despite Derrick Henry did have a couple rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, this was a wild game. I mean, Derrick Henry went off. Dalvin Cook ran wild over Tennessee. I think you and I were texting during the game. The Tennessee run defense was one thing we really called out. Yeah. And Kirk Cousins actually showed up, which surprised me a little bit. Had a decent game. I think 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did have a couple of turnovers again, which didn't help things. But the Vikings actually outgained Tennessee in this game, 1.4 yards per play more and 8.2 yards per pass more. So definitely an unexpected outcome. And I'm certainly have downgraded Tennessee a little bit after that one. Although now with COVID hitting the team, who knows what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, it may help them out, but as you've noted, the Titans are 3-0. They're one of those 3-0 teams, but they're 0-3 ATS, and it's we backed them at least twice so far, right, this year,
Yeah.
and they've been two of our 5 losses on the season. So I'm glad they're sitting this week out. But you've
Yeah.
also put Taylor Lewan on the shelf. We'll see if he'll be back in another week or so. What was the injury?
I don't know what the injury was. I saw him go out, I think, early third quarter, and he's certainly one of their um, highest priority offensive linemen. So he'll be missed although with the extra week off, he could get back.
Hmm. Before we go into the Monday night game, we do have to mention our Patriots pick, which looked good, and they look good. Patriots won 36-20. They dominated. They did go over the total action, but one of the things that I heard during the week last week that I failed to mention is that Bill Belichick is incredible after a loss against the spread. So didn't feel too bad, but there was a little stretch there where we got a little bit nervous. There was a turnover. Cam had a couple of turnovers in this game. And but thankfully that defense turned it on, and Vegas just didn't have it in them in the fourth quarter. What do you got in this game?
Yeah, again, another defense that I think is playing below their preseason expectations in the New England Patriots. They ended up covering this game by a pretty wide margin. But when you look at the box score, you see that Oakland actually outgained the Patriots, zero point 0.7 yards per play and 2.1 yards per pass. And Las Vegas made a ton of mistakes, including a fumble inside the New England red zone and then scoring on only a field goal with a drive that started inside their other red zone. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that going forward, you really have to question the New England defense, at least compared to their level from last season.
Right, no question. I mean, they're not as good. We'll obviously see. Look at the truest test this week against Kansas City. Nice segue action. Thank you. The Monday night game was another situation where it was kind of a standoff, and this time the AFC. We talked about this. Giving Patrick Mahomes 3.5 points on the road was kind of ludicrous in the contest and in general. But we kind of actually discussed off air, maybe going with the Ravens here because we
Mhm.
thought, we thought the Ravens were really good. Well, I don't know. This Chiefs team came out guns a-blazing. They were really destroying the Ravens. They were beating this team so bad early. I thought that, I don't know, not that they were going to take, Lamar Jackson out, but it was just kind of be like, hey, let's just make sure he doesn't get hurt. And so I don't know. This as I put on the note, a healthy Pat Mahomes. I guess Mrs. Mahomes, his mom doesn't like being called Pat. So
I saw
Patrick
that.
Mahomes and the litany of weapons. If they're healthy, this team is really kind of unstoppable. The only note I had was that Ravens are now 0-5 when trailing by 10 or more when they have Lamar Jackson under center. So it's just something to watch, going forward.
Yeah, definitely not a team that's equipped to play from behind. That's certainly a given. But another one I got wrong after we talked. I ended up on the Ravens laying the 3 points on Monday night, and that one never had a chance because Pat Mahomes was awesome. 385 yards and 4 touchdowns, and they went out and really proved it that they were still the class of the AFC.
Right. I think it was another situation too that when you have no crowd noise in a situation where you have to pass every time in Baltimore, you can't, the defense could just tee off, and it wasn't like they were sacking them at will, but that Kansas City defense played very confidently in that game once they got up, and that's kind of the way that they're built. Spagnuolo's teams are always good at pass rush when they're up. Well, let's talk about some other positives from the weekend. Your guy, Russell Wilson, he's your pick, of course, for MVP. I guess he's most people's pick. Back-to-back 5 touchdown games, man. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I think you added here should have been 6. DK Metcalf. Oh my gosh. I laid an
Yeah.
I went alternative total over 63. And when
Okay.
he did that in the first half, I was just cursing because I thought for sure that was going to bust my over 63. But it
Yeah.
got there in the end with an incredible scoring barrage on both sides.
Yeah, that was an amazing game too. We didn't even talk about it. That Dallas team, I told you they could score. They just don't. They can't stop anybody, unfortunately, and apparently they can't get an extra point. That was kind of what killed me. I actually did take the Cowboys in that one with the points, and they fell short because of those extra points, and then the 2 point conversion by Seattle on their last touchdown really pushed it over.
Yeah,
Um,
that Seattle defense is secondary, especially. They are in a world of hurt right now. And I think this is a spot we might look for later in the show going to Miami this weekend.
yeah, a little foreshadowing. We've already mentioned Josh Allen, but the note I wanted to say that through 3 weeks, he's actually eclipsed the great Jim Kelly in his 1991 season the K-Gun team that they had. They went to the Super Bowl and probably should have beat the Giants. He's actually eclipsed those yards in 3 weeks. So he is really balling. I mean, it's just as you put, the Bills defense is not getting it done for him right now.
I think I heard this week that Josh Allen's 3 games this season are his 3 career highs in passing. So that tells you how he's playing this season.
Well, you wonder, I did hear that he worked with, and I believe is it Jordan Palmer? Is that the guy? Not Carson. Maybe it was Carson. He worked with one of the Palmers in the offseason to work on his mechanics, to work on his reading, maybe his touch. And I mean, there's got to be something to it. Maybe it's confidence that he just feels like he has more confidence after working with those guys. But he's definitely throwing the ball better. I mean, he's got digs too, but he's looking great out there.
Mm-hmm.
How about the Bears? I know I actually, sorry, America and my fans, I did pick against the Bears in this game with the spread, thinking 2.5. It fell to 2.5, and we kind of communicated before the game started. I'm like, this is nuts. And I was looking great for, 3 quarters or so when the Bears were just rolling or getting crushed down there by Atlanta. But man, this Atlanta team can't hold a lead. And more importantly, and this is a shout out to Rainmaker who sent me this text, Big Dick Nick came in and he just dominated, man. I mean, he should have thrown 5 touchdown passes. They had the one overturned by the interception, and then he had another guy, I think it was Anthony Miller, was ruled that it wasn't a touchdown catch in the end zone. So they had like 5 trips in Atlanta's territory, scored on 3 of the 5, could have scored on all 5, and they won this game miraculously. So it was just, Foles obviously gives them a different element. More importantly, I think he just threw the ball up. I mean, that Atlanta secondary is atrocious. And, what can you say?
Well, the Falcons are dead to me. That's what I could say. I was on them as well again, and I can't believe that happened 2 weeks in a row. I can't believe that Dan Quinn still has a job today on Thursday.
Yeah.
The Bears certainly are a little fugazi.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, 3-0. They're 3-0, baby. Woohoo! Except they barely won 2 games. It kind of rolls into our negatives here. The Falcons unprecedentedly have failed on, having 15-point leads in back-to-back weeks in the fourth quarter. So Dan Quinn needs to go. This is our Dan Quinn needs to go. Let's get rid of him. Let's put anybody in there. I mean, God, bring back Bobby Petrino. I mean, whoever. I don't know what it is with this team, but they basically seize up, and you could see it in the game. Even Matt Ryan, he was making crappy throws on those last couple drives. He just didn't have it in him, and I guess they're just a front-running team. And once the train slips down, it's over. I mean, we saw it in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
One of my negative notes from last week is that the NFC East. Oh man, and I told you about this last week. I could not get on board with these guys. In 3 weeks, they're 2-9-1 against the spread, and one of those games was a head-to-head matchup. So one of the teams technically probably had to win anyway. Obviously, I talked about the Cowboys missing the extra points at Seattle, but really the biggest loser in this division's got to be the Eagles. I mean, this team, I don't know what is going on. You talked about Carson Wentz. Last week, we talked about bringing in Jalen Hurts. Something's got to change with this team, and I mean, I do think the Bengals are better than expected, but that team is garbage, and maybe it's the offensive line. I'm not really sure. What do you think about that division?
Just terrible. I don't think anybody wants to win it. I think the Cowboys are still the odds-on favorites. They have to be at this point. But the Eagles, you certainly feel like that there's something wrong there. I don't know if it's Carson Wentz. I don't know if it's an injury, but I mean, they have to get. I still can't believe that they didn't even try a field goal at the end of overtime. It seems like they're just throwing in the towel on the season. Now they're 0-2-1. That tie is going to go real far.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, they're only a half a game out. Is that what it is?
True.
Maybe it's a game out of first place with the Cowboys and Washington with 1 win. We'll see. I mean, they're going to start playing each other. Somebody's got to win. You've also put on the Giants here that they. The Niners, who were playing the JV squad, as you've written, outgained the Giants by 200 yards and 1.1 yards per play and 3.6 yards per pass. That's with Nick Mullins at quarterback. I mean, dude, the Giants suck.
Yeah, Mullins ended up as the number 2 ranked quarterback on the week with 343 passing yards. And the Giants, I bet on the Giants last weekend, and I'll admit it, but I certainly won't be doing that again.
No, you got to see something better. My other negative note, I've kind of alluded to it, Drew Brees. I just threw some statistics here. The other night, yards per completion, 9.93, which seems like, that's okay. But a lot of it came on Alvin Kamara's play, and it was yards after the catch. When I looked up the next gen stats, his air yards were 4.6 yards per attempt. Now, that might not mean anything to you. That's just kind of like I have to compare it to something. Well, he had 0 attempts beyond 20 yards and 5 beyond 10 yards in the entire game. I know that Michael Thomas is out, but they have guys out there that can maybe get a little separation. I mean, what's his name? Traquan Smith? Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, Emmanuel Sanders isn't bad. He can get downfield. We've talked about it before, and I like Drew Brees. I think he's a great guy, great NFL player. He's gonna basically have all the records in passing, but he's done, man. He can't throw the ball down the field, and I think that's gonna cost them come the playoffs. They might win the games, got a solid team, but I don't trust him come January.
Yeah, I think that they are certainly one-dimensional or two-dimensional, I guess, if you count the handoffs in the backfield, but with the inability to throw the ball down the field, defenses are going to get wise to them, and they're going to start playing up on the line and just crowding that space. It's going to be like a red zone up and down the field. Right. So I did hear that Michael Thomas practiced yesterday, so that's certainly going to help their offensive prospects over the next few weeks if he's back onto the team.
Right. The last negative note is just defenses. We've kind of alluded to it, that the scoring is way up, but all these defenses are just garbage. Falcons, Titans, Cowboys, looks like the Saints too, but even the Packers. I mean, anybody out there is just not stopping anybody. We'll have to look at some of the games this week if we think some of these defenses are going to play better. Maybe it's a matchup situation, but at some point, this has been 3 full weeks. Preseason's usually 3 to 4 weeks, right? So maybe this game we'll see something better. Maybe we'll see a step forward, but I don't know. We'll find out. Let's jump into week 4. Do we want to cover all the games again and just do what we did last week, or just select games?
Yeah, we can go through rotation order and kind of gloss over any ones that we immediately want to pass. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, we'll pass the Sunday night game, the Thursday night game. That's airing tonight, so we don't need to talk about that.
I will admit quickly, I bet on the Jets.
He has a problem, America. He can't not take it. What number did you get?
I did get +3, and it's since flipped 4.5 points. So certainly some closing line value.
Okay, you get a little plus money. It's hard to say, man. I mean, Denver, they were our contest pick last week. I talked you into it. I'm sorry, they sucked. And I think that's more of a statement that Tampa's better. Tampa's pretty good. But, the Broncos didn't play well at home, and we'll see how they go. The Jets are atrocious, but I just hold your nose. Hope you get that win action.
Yeah, don't plan to watch.
All right, so the first game on a rotation is Cleveland against Dallas. Dallas, as we know, we've talked about them. Their defense stinks. Cleveland, okay. They won again. It was kind of close for a while with Washington last week. We're looking at Dallas in the Circa contest that is a 5-point favorite. I'd open around 5.5, so it's not that big of a movement. I don't know. I mean, 55.5 is the total. That seems about right. These teams both can score. I guess the handicap in this game would be, can Dallas stop the Cleveland running game? And I don't know if I can answer that question as a yes. Originally, I like Dallas in this game because I think that they are a very talented team. I've talked about this for 2 weeks. But I can't really trust that defense. And if they do the right script in Cleveland, they're going to win this game, aren't they?
Absolutely. I like Cleveland on the money line, and I like them a heck of a lot, catching 5 points now in the contest. I think you nailed the handicap right off the bat. I don't believe that Dallas is going to be able to stop this Cleveland running attack.
Right.
The Browns are one of the top offensive lines in the league. And I think I'm looking here. Offensive line, run blocking, they're 4th. 3rd when they look at second level blocking. So I think that you've seen this Cleveland Browns team the past 2 weeks really just take it to their opponents with smash mouth football. And I don't think that Dallas is going to be able to match them. Um, Certainly think that on the flip side, Dak Prescott is going to be lined up for some success on his side.
Right.
But if Cleveland can successfully keep the Cowboys offense off the field, I think that they can maintain control of this game. What are your thoughts?
Well, I also think the Browns secondary, they have pretty good corners. I don't think they have great linebackers and safeties. You don't have a Dallas team that has a dominant tight end. And obviously Zeke is a great running back, but he's not a passing threat as much as like a Kamara or something like that. So I think the handicap works out even better that way because it seems to me that as good as Prescott's playing, he is getting really good play out of his outside receivers. So I can get on board with this pick. We'll talk about some other ones because I
Okay.
do think Dallas is, they are my pick to make the Super Bowl. I think at some point they're going to start playing better. It may not be this week though.
Okay.
The next game we're skipping, as we've talked about, the Titans in Pittsburgh, they are actually postponed. We don't know when. I think it's just going to be a bye week, right? They're going to move their bye week or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter about week 7 and 8 and shuffling around a Ravens game, something I haven't looked too much into it, to be honest.
Right. I mean, it kills my fantasy. One of my teams, I have both Henry and Connor on the same team, but whatever.
Mhm.
Let's go to the next one. This is we've talked about this team a lot today, both teams. New Orleans is going to Detroit. Detroit's going back home. They are a 4.5 point dog at home. The total's 54, which I guess that seems about right. Um, do you think you're going to back Detroit again in this spot? I mean, they're getting points at home against, the Saints that we know are struggling.
Yes, you know me well.
He loves the.
Yeah.
He's got a Detroit Lions jersey under there. I know he does. No, 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 under that shirt.
I don't wear jerseys anymore, Wags. I'm too old for that. I do like the Lions quite a bit. I think that this New Orleans defense is just overrated, man. I
Yeah,
expected coming into the season that they were going to be a lot better, and they're just not. I mean, 12th ranked in DVOA right now, but I think that's partially due to their preseason rankings because the
sure.
pass defense is not good, 21st ranked. And I think that in Arizona last week, we saw a fundamental change with the offensive play calling. Namely, they put DeAndre Swift on the bench, and you saw a lot of Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson toting the rock. And I think that changes this Lions team a little bit.
Right. Well, we'll see. They got Galladay back last week. They did look better. He had a touchdown. It's going to be a high scoring game. I think the total makes sense because I don't think either defense. I know you said Detroit's playing better, but to me, it's probably a Detroiter pass. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably leaning more pass. I know you love
Fair.
Detroit. Yeah, it's hard. I do think the Saints. I don't know. I feel like they're going to win the game. 4.5 seems like a lot for a road game. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they
And
struggle at the Raiders.
I'll add, much like last week, I think this Lions team is a even stronger play in the first half. I found
Right.
them at +3.5 in the first half, which I think is some pretty serious value.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, next team on the card is Minnesota going to Houston. These is, the non-COVID game, which was maybe was off the board for a minute. Open at 4.5. Now it's up to 5. Houston being the favorite at home. And I'm not showing a total. Is it like 54, 54.5, something like that?
Yeah, I believe that's right. I It's
I guess.
opened at like 51.5, but you've definitely seen some over money hit the board this week on Minnesota and Houston for good reason.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it is up to 54 now. I'm looking at the odd screen.
Right. This would be a spot. Now we talked about backing Houston at Pittsburgh. We did back off of that luckily because they didn't cover, but they played pretty well. I mean, the game was it was a toss up. They lost by 7, right? It was a solid spot. I do think Houston's going to get this win. It's just by how many points. And Minnesota did show me something, and this is the Kirk Cousins time slot as we've discussed.
True.
Cousins also is known for having good games followed by stinkers. And so I would be okay backing Houston in this spot.
Yeah, I totally agree. Houston has to be the side. I was a little bit shocked when I saw the contest number come out today because even now there's not a single book on my odds screen that is showing anything above a 4.
Right.
And to see the 5 come up, I was just like, what? Where did that come from? And I think it probably leads a little bit of an indication as to where the odds makers at Circa think that this number is headed prior to Sunday. Outside of that, I think that you've got a pretty serious situational advantage for Houston. As you mentioned earlier, Minnesota had an equally scary week, I'm sure, with COVID tests.
Right.
And they were locked out of the facility all day yesterday and didn't even get back to begin practice until this morning. So even though Cousins is playing at 1 p.m., I think it's pretty well documented that he is a pretty serious creature of habit. And not having practice one day in a week, I think, is going to disrupt Minnesota, not only on the offensive side of the ball. We haven't even talked about their porous secondary yet. I think Deshaun Watson and company are going to have a big day. So I could definitely get behind Houston.
Okay. Let's keep that as a maybe. Look at that. We're agreeing a little bit this week. That's scary. The next game is, of course, a game that puts us head-to-head in a way. The Colts are coming to Chicago here. BDN, as we call him, Big Dick Nick here, is going to take, he's the starter officially in Chicago now. They're getting 2 points at home, which is interesting. The Colts have played well the last 2 weeks after losing week 1. The total's 44.5. You like that, huh, Action?
Interesting.
Thanks, Rainmaker. But anyway, I know you're probably back in the Colts here. I just got to stay away, and not just because I'm a homer here for the Bears. I just don't know what to expect with Foles. I think that he's not going to play as well as he did last week, for sure. But the Colts, I don't know. I mean, they were two weeks at home. They look great. They look bad at Jacksonville. It is an outdoor game. I don't know if that makes any difference for Phillip Rivers, the old man. I certainly think Indy's probably the right side here. 2 points is not a big total. When it was 2.5, I was feeling a little bit better for the Bears if I was going to take it. 2 is a weird number. So I don't know. It's a stay away from me, Action, but I'm sure you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I definitely love Indianapolis here. I think this number tells a huge story. I was listening to some content this week, and the fact that the Chicago Bears are 3-0 and playing at home, and they're an underdog against a 2-1 team is it's only happened in 3 times in the last 25 years, this position. Wow. So the fact that Indianapolis was opened as a favorite in this game is a major story by the odds makers. And I think the Bears are just overrated. They are the 5th worst DVOA metric at this point in the season for a 3-0 team. And they're ranked 26th per DVOA, and Indianapolis is ranked number 1 on defense. I know that they have had a pretty easy strength of schedule so far. Granted, the Jets and the Jaguars and the Vikings were on their schedule. But when you look at the Bears, I mean, they played the Lions, the Falcons, and the Giants. So equally poor strength of schedule. And I also think that the loss of Tariq Cohen is going to be a huge factor for Foles. So, and also not talked about this week, Frank Reich knows Nick Foles very well from their time in Philadelphia. So I think that there's a little bit of an edge there too with him sharing information with his defensive coaches.
Okay. No, I hear it. I mean, I know it. I know people that it makes sense, right? But I just, maybe the troops are rallied. They certainly played hard for Foles last week. Big home game, even though there's nobody in the stands. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of interesting. Rivers, is a local casino now, doing sportsbook. It's still a 2.5, which I think is interesting. I would think it would be lower than that. Money coming in on the Bears. So maybe there's a lot of people that don't believe in the Bears, even locally.
Yeah, I do agree that there's some motivation factor from Foles. You saw it last week when they made the move. You could just see it on the sideline, the Bears' energy level with Foles and it's clear. I think everyone knows that the only reason Trubisky started the season was for pace. So,
yeah, I give Nagy some credit for that. I think he's not a very good play caller actually, but he was definitive when that happened. When he threw the pick in that situation, I was like, is this the time? I mean, come on, dude. I mean, it was a bad throw. He hadn't played that great anyway. Really, his best play was that 45-yard run when I don't know where any Falcons defender was. And he was kind of looking for somebody to hit him anyway. It was really bizarre. Anyway, let's get to the next game. We'll come back to this.
I respect your position.
Next game is a 1 o'clock game. It's the Chargers flying all the way to Tampa Tampa looks better. I mean, they obviously lost in week one. They won't come back with 2 wins. They're 6.5 point favorites at home. The total's pretty low, especially in this modern NFL at 43.5. Justin Herbert did not play well last week, and it looked like they prepared for some of his stuff. Even though they had a chance to come back late and maybe even win the game, except that crazy flea flicker play between Keenan Allen and what's his name, Justin Eckler, but they wouldn't have covered that game anyway. So I don't know. I mean, I do actually like the number at 6.5 for Tampa now. I thought when it was 7.5, I could go for the Chargers. The 6.5 certainly better for the home team in this regard.
Yeah, another curious contest line here posted. Looking at my board here, it's 7.5, and they post a 6.5. So another number that just kind of made me do a double take. And I got to be honest, I like the Chargers, certainly above the touchdown. But now that you're looking at a number at 6.5, I'm not sure that I would recommend we play that side. I do think that Tampa Bay is in kind of a tough scheduling spot here. They came off of a big road win at Denver in the altitude last weekend, and now they're coming home and they're laying points to a Chargers team who is historically great in an underdog role. So I'm not sure that I love the Tampa Bay side either. I would probably be happy to pass.
Okay, we can totally pass. It's hard for me in this game, especially at that number. And I do want to see if Tampa can beat a team. I think the Chargers defense is pretty good. It was surprising last week that Carolina was able to score the way they did without McCaffrey, as we talked about. But in the end, I think that defense is still pretty good, and they're going to give them all they want. I mean, the thing about the Chargers defense is they have really good pass rush, and you do not have an elusive player in Tom Brady. So they're going to keep him in the pocket. They're going to hit him. We'll see how it goes. The couple more 1 o'clock spots, we've got Baltimore playing Washington. This is kind of a regional matchup. So you've got Baltimore at 12.5 point favorites on the quote unquote road. Even though if this game was actually played, I think there would be just as many Ravens fans in the stands. The total's 47. I've seen this kind of spread go up and down. I mean, at Rivers, it's 3.5. It opened, I think, at 13. I'm sorry, 13.5.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, not 3.5, 13.5. It opened at 13. 12.5 seems like a favorable number for Baltimore, as you talked about. It's kind of a weird contest line. Are you willing to jump back on board with the Ravens again?
Yeah, I would be. I think that would be the only side I would look to in this game, especially after that loss on Monday night to Kansas City. You've got to expect that John Harbaugh is going to get his troops riled up and ready for a victory to right the ship here. And, much like the Cleveland handicap last week, I think the key to beating the Washington football team is an offensive line. And the Ravens certainly have that with the ability to run the ball and Lamar Jackson. Definitely don't like laying double digits. So I think we could probably find 5 better picks, though.
Agreed. I don't know if you can hear this action, but it is hailing right here in Chicago. This is recording. It is coming down, and they're not golf ball size. They're good size, though. You can hear the pitter patter. That's great.
Cool.
All right. How about this one? Arizona's going to Carolina. Very unique game. Arizona, a road favorite. 3 points in this one. The total's 52. It opened up as 3.5 point favorites for Arizona. It's interesting. They didn't play well last week. They played really well in underdog roles in the past. And Carolina surprised me last week. I kind of didn't expect them to play that well. Teddy Bridgewater showed me something. I don't like Arizona in this spot, but I don't know if I can back Carolina either.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Arizona is definitely one that we would cross off here. If we were going to play this game, it would have to be Carolina. And I like it a lot more with a higher number, 3.5, 4, that opened up earlier this week. Certainly more palatable, but it is a tough spot for Arizona, flying all the way across the country, playing in the early time slot against Carolina. And Teddy Bridgewater has been very steady. Steady Teddy doesn't turn the ball over. He certainly failed in some red zone situations last week in LA, but I think that if we were going to be looking to this game, it would be Carolina. However, it doesn't sound like either of us have a strong conviction.
Yeah, 3.5 would have been a great number for me. The 3 points that's push written all over it to me, and not that I'm trying to avoid pushes, but it's definitely possible in the contest. So
Hmm.
let's look at the next one. Jacksonville, Cincinnati, another kind of interesting matchup at the bottom of the AFC. They're 3-point favorites at home, so that's kind of the standard 3-point favorite situation. 49-point total. This has been pretty steady from what I've seen throughout the week. It opened at 3 as well. I mean, I'd back Cincinnati here. I know you probably are back on Minshew Mania, but through the last 2 weeks, Cincinnati's shown me something. I know that you didn't want to get on board with me against the Philadelphia team, but I mean, Joe Burrow, he's your guy. You used to have his jersey. I guess you burned it, when you went to the NFL, but he's playing pretty well. I mean, he's playing like a professional quarterback. They've used his offense in this situation. Jacksonville put up a stinker. So this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I'm falling for a trap here. This is like a trap situation for a better, because it's like Burrow's played well. Jacksonville sucked last week. I should take Cincinnati. Are you telling me to take Jacksonville?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I definitely don't want Cincinnati.
Right.
First of all, I can't believe that they're laying points, certainly this many points to any NFL team.
Sure.
Joe Burrow is still a rookie, and I don't think that he's ready to be laying a field goal at this point in his young career. And I really think that the media buzz has been kind of overwhelming in the past
Mhm.
2 weeks. After that pretty good Thursday night performance, he backed it up last week with a tie, not a loss. And I think that the media is picking this up and carrying it. You hear everyone talking about Joe Burrow, but the reality is that their offense has not been great. They're only averaging 4.2 yards per play on offense this season. And I think that this Jacksonville defense, specifically the run stopping unit, is going to be something that Cincinnati's going to struggle with this weekend. And another point, Jacksonville is coming off the Thursday night game with a little bit more of a rest advantage. So if I had to pick this one, it'd be on the Jaguars side.
Okay. We'll definitely stay away from this one then. And not that I have to get on Cincinnati either. It's when I see matchups like that, I'm like, ugh, two bad teams. Do I
Hmm.
really feel great about it? It's not a scheduling spot that I love, so
I like the
let's
pass
find
also.
some more games. The last 1 o'clock spot is the one we kind of alluded to. Seattle's going to Miami. That's a very long trip if you haven't taken that before, action. Seattle's a 6-point favorite on the road. This total's 54.5, which seems pretty high. You still got Fitzpatrick and FitzMagic at the helm over there in Miami. He's played well. Obviously, Russell's playing at an incredible level. This game did open at 7, which of course I loved it at 7 because I'm looking at the Miami side here. So the
Hmm.
more points, the better. I think that Seattle's still going to get their points, but their defense, as you've already talked about, struggles.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And on top of that, the Seattle injury list is lengthy this week.
Mhm.
A number of players that are either sitting out practice or were limited participants. The tackles on both sides, Dwayne Brown. Um, their secondary is quite limited. Jamal Adams didn't practice this week, along with Quentin Dunbar.
Yep.
Even the running back, Chris Carson, sat out. DK Metcalf got the resting veteran designation, which kind of I thought was strange. But
I
uh,
like that.
I think that Miami is definitely a live dog in this game. I don't see, and Fitzpatrick, he's ready to gunsling it.
Oh, he's
He's
ready. He's ready
he,
for this matchup.
he's licking his chops looking at that Cowboys game last weekend. So I like it. I think that Miami is something we could lock in right now.
I mean, he is waxing that mustache. He is ready. He's ready to be the swashbuckler and go toe to toe with Russell. And he's one of those guys that the team always rallies around. And they didn't play. What was it? Week 1 they didn't play great, but they played really well in the last 2 weeks. And I think that I'm all on board. So let's do it. Let's lock it in.
Okay.
Some 4 o'clock games here, some interesting ones anyway. The Giants are going to the Rams. The Rams are 13-point favorites, a robust favorite at home. The total's 47.5 with some heavy juice to and that one, I guess, to the over or the under. Is that when it says minus 115? Is that to the under or the over?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I just noticed that. So it opened at 12.5. Obviously, it's kind of going up. Daniel Jones and the boys, they really got crushed last week. The Rams look like juggernauts. Probably a good spot to back the Giants, but you know my position on NFC East teams. I just can't do it right now.
Yeah, I want nothing to be a part of this game. I would just be happy to pass and move on. I don't think that we could play either side.
hmm Perfect. Well, let's go to the next one. This is an intriguing one. Buffalo's going to Las Vegas for the Raiders. Buffalo's a 3-point favorite on the road. The total's 52. That's right about where the spread has been, 3, 2.5, 3. I would have loved to see a 2.5 in the contest and jumped on Buffalo, but we've talked about it a little bit already. It seems like you're leaning to the Raiders, and I wouldn't be against it. I do think them coming home, they're going to play better, and that Buffalo defense has been a little suspect. I'm not sure it's our top 5 pick, but tell me about the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, I think this Buffalo defense is really drawing question marks in my mind, and it's a tough spot for them. They had to really hang on to win that game against the Rams on Sunday. Now they have to fly across the country and play in Las Vegas in the stifling heat, presuming still going to be pretty warm there. And I think that John Gruden is going to be getting them up for this game. This is their second home game. You saw how well they played in the second week versus New Orleans at home. And I think this is a good spot for New Orleans. Certainly agree that it's not one of our top picks, but maybe something we could keep in our back pocket.
Right. I think you meant Vegas instead of New Orleans, but yes, I think it's a good spot for them. Yeah, we'll see. Let's see if we've got if we have to decide between a couple games. The next one at 4 o'clock, kind of the premier game, it'll be a CBS game, is New England is going to Kansas City. This is a matchup that's been happening for the last 2-3 years, and it's been epic, both in the playoffs and in regular season. You're looking at the Chiefs at a 6.5-point favorite at home. It opened at 7. Interesting that the contest put it at 6.5 here. The total's 54. I mean, I have a hard time not backing the Chiefs in this spot under 7. I think that they're humming on all cylinders. I do think that Belichick probably has some wrinkles for this offense that they haven't seen yet. But the thing about my worry about taking New England in this spot, I guess, is that, Cam had a great game against Seattle, and he did not look good last week. I'm not saying it's his fault, but it was just a different game. He wasn't playing that, loose and free. Maybe he will this week against, Mahomes because he's trying to step up. But I still think Kansas City's the team here. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but I'm not sure that I want to lay 6.5 points in this game against Bill Belichick.
Right.
You saw it in the AFC Championship 2 years ago. I think that he and his son have good schemes against Patrick Mahomes. And if there's any defensive coaches in this league that can shut down this Chiefs offense, I think it's these two guys. The Kansas City run defense scares me a little bit, 30th ranked according to DVOA. And you saw one Rex Burkhead have a big game last week. And I think that he and Cam Newton are certainly capable of some success this week. I think that the New England Patriots can only play this game one way, and that's to keep the ball and keep it a little bit more low scoring. So I'm not sure that, I think you might have talked me off New England. I initially wanted to suggest them, but I'm not sure that I want to back Kansas City either.
Well, I did too. I mean, my initial pass is always, hey, New England getting points, that many points is an automatic, right? It's kind of the way I've gone. I mean, we've talked about it in the past when they were in the AFC title game. I was all over New England. Nobody was on them. It's probably the sharp play. I just don't know. It's hard to stop this freight train. Now we saw, obviously the Chargers did something, right? So they did something.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that Belichick has dissected that film and seeing if he can do it. Well, we'll see. I mean, I probably could get on board with, with New England if we had to pick one. But, I mean, I always like to have action in that game, to be honest with you. So I'm going to pick it somewhere. I just don't know if we'll go contest. How about this next one? This is the Sunday night game. Probably would have been more marquee if Philadelphia was playing better and San Francisco had anybody playing anymore. But the Eagles travel all the way across country to San Francisco. The 49ers are 6.5-point favorites at home. The total's 45. That's really been where it's at. It was at 7. I see 7.5 here and there. It's solid 7s from where I can see. It's an interesting spot. The Eagles are in a must-win situation. The Niners have played very well on the road like they did last year, despite the injuries. It's one of these totally non-metrically based decisions. I'd have to back the Eagles here. I think they have to win this football game. So whether they do or not, it's kind of like Minnesota last week. If they want to be any contention for the division, they got to win. And so I know that's probably not metrically sound, but that's my thought.
Yeah, I don't. Them having to win is one thing. I think the bigger factor in this handicap is that the entire world is off of the Eagles now.
Right.
No one wants any part of the Eagles, and I think that's what you're getting at, and that's the time where you really want to step in and back a team. And I think that San Francisco is a little bit overrated too. Even I don't know if it's going to be Mullins or Jimmy G under center this week, but even after that performance last week against the Giants, I still think that this San Francisco team is a little bit overrated early on in this season, and that you're getting an inflated number here. 6.5 in the contest. Certainly would like to see a 7, but you could definitely convince me to be on the Eagles.
Well, it's interesting because the Niners played both the Jets and the Giants in consecutive weeks, stayed out, out east, and they were the kings of New York, I guess. And they did obviously lose to the Cardinals in week 1, and that was at full strength. So I don't know. I mean, the Eagles have played like crap, but maybe if they, like you said, are underdogs, maybe they get fired up and play better. I mean, they haven't played as favorites very well. So I don't know. It's hard. It's one of those hold your nose picks, especially if it's a contest pick. But I
Yeah,
think it's a little contrarian, in my opinion.
agreed.
Um, the last
No doubt.
the last game on the slate is Atlanta playing Green Bay. Green Bay looked like world beaters, of course, on Sunday night against New Orleans. They're a robust 7.5 point favorite at home, 58 point total. So you're looking at the big scoring here. It opened at 7. I see it at 7 too. So it's interesting that this contest line is 7.5, trying to get you to take Atlanta. But we know what you position on it. You can't do that. But would you back a bad number with the Packers at 7.5 on Monday night?
No, I don't think you could take the Packers here in this spot. If we had to pick it, it's got to be Atlanta. Similar handicap to the last game.
Hmm.
The Nobody wants a part of the Atlanta Falcons right now, and that's when you really should be stepping in and grabbing the points. But I don't think we can do it. I certainly don't see it as being one of our top 5 picks. I don't know. Do you feel that Green Bay could be in play?
It's just a bad number. I know that 2 years ago I would have said, yeah, let's do it. I've gotten better. Actions taught me a little bit better about betting, and 7.5 is just a rotten number. And these days, we can have another discussion another day about, traditional numbers with the NFL
Mm,
and how that's changed. I think the true number now seems like it's 6
yeah.
because so many extra points are missed, or they go for 2 and miss, or they get to. So 7 doesn't even feel like a real number anymore. 7.5 feels big. It's like the old 8 points. You never
Yeah.
take 8. So I don't think you can take it, and I do think the Packers are going to smash, but just to be safe, it's not a good play. Uh, Look at that. You're teaching me something, Action.
Hey, you got to learn eventually. Pretty soon you'll be the master.
All right, right. Well, let's go over just the picks in our Circa position. So this is week 4 of the Circa. As you know, this is the end of the first quarter for the Circa Million 2. If we somehow can sneak into the top 3 places, we'll win some money. It's not looking great. We're 10-5, which is excellent, actually. Action, we've done really well. That's 67%. It puts us in 212th place out of 3,500 or whatever it is. So we're actually doing really well this year so far. We'd probably have to go 5-0 to jump up, and even then we may not make it, but we certainly want it for the season long.
Hmm.
Um, and then we didn't talk about before. We're way out of the contention for the the booby prize. So unless you want to start picking really badly the rest of the way, we're not in contention for the 100 grand.
No,
Um,
I like our spot. I mean, obviously, being in contention for that first quarter would be awesome, but
yes.
I don't think either of us can complain about 67% through 3 weeks. If we keep
No.
up that pace, we're going to be right there in the end.
No, absolutely, absolutely, no question. So we've talked about it. Looks like we both like Houston in this week against Minnesota at home with the 5 points. We're going to stay off the Cincinnati Jacksonville one, it looks like, because they're both stinkers. Let's jump down a little bit. We both like Miami, and at home against Seattle, getting those 6 points. The third game was
Cleveland. I highlighted early on, and also highlighted the Philadelphia Eagles.
Okay. I can get on board with those 4. It means we got to pick a 5th. I mean, we've got a lot of them to choose with, whether we go with New England with the points. I don't know if I'm going to get on the Indianapolis bandwagon there. We do like Vegas a little bit at home with the 3, and Carolina getting 3 points at home as well. So there's definitely something to pick from as a 5th contest pick.
True. Yeah, we have a lot to pour through this week. Obviously, like always, want to look at the injury reports and see what the latest breaking news is between now and Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm looking, there's a fair amount of road dogs this week. That's kind of unique. Usually you're only getting 3 to 4 teams that are favored on the road. You've got, I think, 6 now, from what I can see. So it's definitely a spot that I like to attack, not just in the contest, but for betting purposes. It is hard to cover on the road, even if you're a really good team. Excellent. Well, that kind of wraps up our episode here. I mean, we've maybe figured out the technical difficulties. Action's got his new computer. He's looking great. He's well lit. I don't have the green light yet, but I'll be well lit. My mom promises me she's supposed to bring it over. She said it was last week. Come on, Mom.
Come on, Mom.
But yeah, we're gonna get this together where we're doing a little bit changes with the YouTube, but definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, send us comments, send us likes. We're definitely trying to grow it a little bit. It's been fun to do the video. I don't know if you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me shower in the morning, so that's nice. No, I like the video. It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's definitely different, but we know our loyal listeners are listening on the pod too. So thank you for that, and we want to hear your thoughts. And here's an idea that Rainmaker gave me. I'm just throwing it at you now as we're talking on the pod. So he wants to have like a call-in line. He wants to get some questions from like randos. I don't know if there's so many people that listen to our podcast. I'm sure we'd get so many calls, but we could play the message back and then answer the question. But
yeah,
so if people are into that, we're obviously open to answering questions that you have, or if you had a great pick, or if you hate us because you followed us, taking the Eagles against Cincinnati or something. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear.
Yeah, we could set up a Google Voice number, and listeners could call in and whine and complain that we gave them the wrong picks and that kind of stuff. That'd be fun.
I know, it'd be great. It'd be great. So. All right. Well, follow us at the Side Action follow the Side Action Pod at Side Action Pod on Twitter. Follow me at Wegspool on Twitter and Instagram.
And you can follow me on Twitter at 31S Roberts.
All right. Good luck in week 4. We're getting to the point where we can do analytics, and hopefully it'll be even better going forward.
Yeah. Good luck to everybody, and stay safe out there. Make sure that you keep far away from any Tennessee Titans.
Exactly. All right. Bye-bye.